Okay, so Naila, what happened to you?
I've received a phone call from a prevent worker who didn't identify herself necessarily at first as a prevent worker. I personally did not know what prevent was, not exactly. And I was just asked a lot of questions about myself, about my marriage, about my personal
What year
life.
was this, Naila?
So I received this phone call in 2019 to let me know that she had no concerns about me.
This is the prevent officer,
This is the
and
prevent
you were at
officer.
work.
Yes, I was. So I received this phone call, and as I said, she'd asked me questions about my private life. I'm very private about my personal life. And then she went on to say, oh, I have no concerns. I still didn't really understand what prevent was. I really, the conversation was, I felt attacked on my personal life was being attacked. So after that phone call ended, that's when, if I can be honest, a nightmare began.
What questions were you asked?
She asked me, when did you become a Muslim? I told her, at that time, I'd been a Muslim for, maybe 4 years. She asked me about how I met my husband, and I said online. It's not unknown to society to meet their partner online. And then she asked me if we were married. I said yes, I've got an Islamic marriage. That it's really important for me to keep things halal. So that's what we done. We met each other, and then we wanted to pursue things in a halal way, and so we had the nikah.
So you got this phone call out of the blue. How did this person introduce themselves?
Friendly, very friendly.
Did they introduce themselves as a prevent officer?
No, not initially. So when I took the phone call, it's so weird discussing this again. So when I took the phone call, she gave her name, and then the title they'll use is a safeguarding officer, and I didn't think that made sense. In fact, I had no idea what it was actually about. And then she started asking me questions, and then that's when the word prevent was thrown in, and there was more questions around me being a Muslim. And I felt like I had to justify, I am a Muslim, I reverted to Islam, I'm a convert, and I'm still friends with many people from different backgrounds. And I felt that I had to emphasise that, to be honest, to kind of end the conversation. And as I said, then afterwards, at the end of the conversation, she said to me, okay, I'm satisfied, I have no concerns. And I said, okay. And then she said, but I would like to meet you. And then, as I said, that's when the horror began.
Naila, I must admit, if I'd received a phone call like that in my workplace, and some strangers started asking me random questions like that, I wouldn't even respond to those questions. Why did you respond?
At the time, a member of my family was a missing person. This is well known. So I actually thought it might be to do with this person in my family. That's why I took the phone call. I don't normally take phone calls. Then what happened after that, she then explained to me that there'd been an investigation for a period of time, and then I actually received a phone call from my sister to inform me that two police officers had arrived at my family home asking for me, and we had no idea what that's about. And then I later found out that a member of my family had indeed referred me in 2018, the year before, to the police and then to prevent.
Why did this family member do that, do you think?
Well, I think clearly, it's obvious it'll be obvious to people to see there is some estrangement with members of my family. I think it does go down to the root causes. I am Muslim and my family is non-Muslim. And I think a lot of members of my family have struggled with that for a very long time. And then, I'd been a Muslim for a number of years, so it's not a phase. And then this Muslim lady in their family decides, I want to get married. And I think that was just the catalyst for members of my family. And it was a really tough time, I have to say. Like, when this person told me, when I was told who it was and that they'd made a referral, and their pretense was, well, it was to get a background check on your husband. And I found it really insulting, controlling, and I just felt that, would you do this to anybody else? Is it, again...
Was this family member, can I ask you directly, Islamophobic, or were Were they trying to perhaps, were they influenced maybe by the media and what was going on in Syria and stuff like that, and thought maybe this is for your own good? You might be being groomed online or something like that?
So I think the person isn't, I'm not going to say this person and the people involved in this referral are Islamophobic. However, yes, I do think they were influenced by the media. I also think it's an element of control, but then the media encourage families to do this. So I'd been a Muslim a few years before I had then said, okay, I want to get married. And I think what hurt more was I was so open about it, that I want to do things in halal way. In fact, my husband had actually spoken to these members of my family. So it really hurt actually that they didn't trust me enough as somebody in their, mid to late 20s to be conscious enough to make smart decisions for herself.
How did you feel when you found out a family member had grassed you up to the police?
To be honest, I'm something I still struggle with. I didn't know who to trust. I think when it's your own family, it's absolutely humiliating. And I think I went through the emotions of anger, upset, betrayal, and then I just turned to Allah. And I realised that maybe they didn't understand that what they've done, they led it to me being investigated. My name is tarnished. And so for the sake of Allah, it's taken years, have to move forward, but the relationship now is very, very, extremely fractured. It clearly was before, but this made it worse.
If you weren't a Muslim, everything would be fine though? You'd be reconciled?
I believe so, because I think that a lot of the arguments that Prevent had and this people in my family was, okay, so one side you're Muslim and then the second side is you've met your husband online. I don't think that's uncommon. Millions of people, Muslim and non-Muslim, meet their spouse or husbands online.
So the Prevent officers, sorry to interrupt you, but the Prevent officers, the line of questioning, they had two concerns. One is that you converted to Islam,
yeah,
and the second is that you'd met your husband online. Those were the two areas of questioning.
Yes. I think they were concerned that I was vulnerable to be manipulated into their terms, into an extreme environment. However, there was nothing about me to show that, nor my husband. And I did find it extremely just prejudiced and Islamophobic, because they done an investigation about me with incorrect information. Yes, I have reverted to Islam, but at that point, I'd been a Muslim for a number of years. And
was it perhaps concerns about your husband? Was your husband somebody, was he in Syria at the time? Was he a jihadi or something like that?
No, and that's the sad part. I honestly think that during the time when this happened, this is when there was a big movement on Prevent and a lot of anti-Islamic media. So I think that they wanted to try and put me into this narrative. Young, revert, British girl, meets her husband online. But my husband is also British. And we were extremely open about things. So for me, it makes no sense. Neither of us fit any narrative. That we were on no radar, we fit no narrative. I just think they wanted to jump on the bandwagon and make me a statistic. And it's the same thing with a family member. This scheme is trying to encourage family and friends and children to spy, and I say spy, on their own family members. And I think that's what they tried to do with me. I was just a statistic.
You saw documents later, and one of the kind of factors perhaps safeguarding you, according to Prevent officers, was that your family was not Muslim.
Yes. I remember reading it distinctly. It said that a protective factor was that my family was non-Muslim and that I had some non-Muslim friends. What's wrong with having Muslim family and friends? And so for that, when I saw that just highlighted again that this isn't about me meeting somebody online, because that's ridiculous. It's actually about me being Muslim and my reversion to Islam.
And after this initial phone call, what happened then?
Well, I spoke to my sister, and that's when my sister informed, she'd called me previously to tell me 2 police officers had turned up to the family home. And then, we later found out family members who had reported me, they then had to speak. They had to tell me the truth. And, you know, I was very fortunate. I have support at the time in terms of my family, obviously for my husband and my sister, but it was really, really challenging. And I found it really hard to accept that for nearly a year, everybody had lied to me. Like those that knew had lied.
But did it escalate beyond that initial phone call? And they did tell you in that initial phone call that they had no further concerns. Did it go any further up the line?
So for me to have received that phone call, what had actually happened is that my family members, my immediate close family members who had made the referral, the case had then gone to Prevent. Then from Prevent, my case had actually been heard at the Channel panel.
What does that mean for the layman? What's the difference between Prevent and Channel?
It's the next step up. Channel is more down the lines of extremism. And there's nothing, I actually am devastated still that I've been put in that bracket, because there's nothing about me that's extreme. There is nothing. And I feel that the fact that they've done this investigation without involving me, I had no clue. All I found out was investigation's done, we have no concerns. So I had no voice, no autonomy to fight my case. And
why do you think it went from... I mean, I guess if Prevent get a phone call from somebody, a concerned member of the public, they have to investigate, right? That is their job, they have to investigate. But then for it to escalate up to like an official, proper hearing, you know, that Channel hearing, they must have had something on you, or did they?
They actually didn't. I think what it was the fact that the referral was made by a family member actually heightens the concern, you know, a concerned family member. And when I've spoken to this family member and another person who knew, because there was only two of them that knew, their reason behind it was, you know, police checks, because, you know, you're getting married. And I just think, sometimes I think, were they manipulated into it? But sometimes I think that some people, they just find it really hard to accept that I've made changes and that I am Muslim. And now getting married solidifies it. So I think the reason why they escalated it was, mine wasn't just a referral from a member of the public. Mine was from a family member. And I think that then was they jumped on a bandwagon of what was going on at the time in the media. And that's why, unfortunately, because of that and my profession, that's why my case was escalated.
But you can categorically, you know, tell me that there was like no signs of extremism to investigate whatsoever. You've not said anything on social media that could be deemed to be supporting terrorism or something like that. Because isn't that, when people think of Prevent, they think, oh, they're safeguarding us from terrorists and terrorism. No link to that whatsoever from your point of view?
I wish I could actually just start laughing about this, because no, there is no link. There is absolutely nothing. My crime is reverting to Islam 9 years ago, alhamdulillah, deciding to keep things halal, and 5 years later into my reversion, I met my husband. We wanted to make it halal, so we went for the nikah. That's my crime. And going for umrah, that's my crime. I have done nothing. I work in the public sector. I work, and I'm close friends with Muslims and non-Muslims. People who knew about this, because I've had to keep it very quiet, they were very shocked and they were so disgusted that this has happened to me and devastated for me. It has affected me. It still affects me to this day.
Yeah, I was going to say, how has it affected you professionally and personally?
Professionally, that's the easiest one to talk about. Professionally, I am at a limbo. There's certain jobs I will never be able to get. My name is tarnished. It's so disgusting, because if I'd done something, I could understand, but I've done absolutely nothing. My crime was meeting my husband on a well-known social media platform and being a Muslim, reverting to Islam. And so, unfortunately, because my details are with the Home Office, if there were certain jobs I wanted to apply for, I wouldn't get them, because it wouldn't explain, okay, this is why she was referred. And it was later recognised that this referral just doesn't make sense, and it was recognised. However, there's nothing I can do about that unless I continue to fight and to ask, I want my details back. And the likelihood of that is very slim, because the government's argument is, okay, they're kept in a sealed case, so why are they kept for?
So even though you've not been found guilty of anything, and most probably you will never be found guilty of anything, these checks have been done on you. Your name is on records that certain agencies can access very easily.
Yep.
And if you go for certain jobs, they will do those background checks. And the likelihood is that you won't get those jobs.
I won't get those jobs. I mean, would you employ me yourself? You wouldn't. What they did say is that it's only select personnel will be able to access them. But the point is, why are they there? What are they kept for? And this, for me, I found this experience scary because that means anybody can make a referral against anybody. In terms of my family, it's destroyed us. Clearly there was issues there in the beginning, but it's just made it worse. And now, for me, personal life, I don't trust people. I try to keep things very private. And I mean, the fact that it got to a point when this was going on, I was too scared to remind my friends, my sisters in Islam at work, come on guys, let's go, it's Salah time this time. That's ridiculous, but that's how it became. I got to a point where I felt that, am I at risk, people being near me who are Muslim, will they be accused of things, even though I haven't done anything, because they're associated with me, especially when this was going on. It was a really horrible time. It's got a lot better, but I am scared for my future because, if I have a family, what does that mean for my family? It's on my record. So if somebody made a complaint against me, it's on my record that I was heard at Channel Panel for nothing, for being a Muslimah, someone who converted to Islam 9 years ago, alhamdulillah, and for meeting their spouse online.
And I know that you can't go into details, but generally, what is the status of your case now? Are you still being investigated for anything, or is it over? I'm
not, because they admitted there was nothing to investigate. But for me, the whole process has taken years, and my name is tarnished.
Do you know what that Channel Panel concluded? Did you get anything, any documents, any letter, or?
I did, but I had to fight for that, and a lot of people won't know to do this. So I legally made a claim for these documents, and because I wanted it in writing, just for the simple fact, let's say I wanted to go on holiday, I go for Umrah. I was terrified that I'd be stopped, and for the first time in my life, since I'd become a Muslim, actually, my whole life actually, I'd had to ask what happens if I get stopped. So one of the things I did ask them is, I want a letter in writing to say there is no case has been closed, and they found nothing against me. I just needed a letter there, but it's just a letter.
You got that letter.
I do have a letter, but it's just a letter. So the letter was really to help me at the time, give me some form of peace.
Prevent, is it a voluntary scheme or is there an element of coercion?
I would actually say there's an element of coercion, and I can use myself as an example. So when I was told, as I'd recently said, that my case was closed, there's no concerns, the prevent officer kept trying to meet me. And I said, I'm not comfortable doing this. I'd rather have this speak to you via writing, via email. Every single email I had, they kept saying, she said, her manager said, that's fine. If you'd like to meet, please, we'd really like to meet you and we could talk about this in person. Every single email. It got to the point where I had to say to them, I feel bullied. I feel you're trying to bully me and force me to meet you. I told them that it's affecting my mental health, my well-being. I'm become an extremely nervous person. I do not want to meet in person. I haven't done anything wrong. You've acknowledged this. I just want my documents from you. I just want the paper. I wanted the letter from them to say this. But every single email. And I remember speaking to the charity that supported me and speaking to them about this. And this is a well-known tactic. And as I said, that was just my experience of this coercion and trying to bully me to meet them. So although they had closed my case, they were just insistent. And if I hadn't had the support from the charity and from Allah and really turning to my deen then, I don't know what I would have done, because I really did feel bullied. I really felt picked on.
What lessons have you learned from this whole experience, and what lessons perhaps are there for the Muslim community to learn?
Lessons for me, I think that I've always said that my family is my biggest test. I think a lot of converts go through, hopefully not exactly the same experience as me, but it's not that unheard of. I just think it's important to continue to be your authentic self, always worship Allah. And I would say, as a community, be mindful of things and really know what things are about. I've heard of a lot of Muslims, they don't know what Prevent is about. I didn't know. And, you know, if you asked me before this happened, I would say, that can't happen to me. I'm not doing anything. I'm just a normal, at the time, my mid-20s sister. But that wasn't the case. And I think now I've learned to not be so judgmental and think, okay, say you know, if you hear about something, or somebody's been spoken to by Prevent, it could be absolutely anything. For me, mine was, I had converted to Islam and I met somebody online who I then married. So I feel that Muslims as a whole, you need to know about what these things mean before you do make referrals, or before you take part in these programs, and speak to your children. And I think as a community, I think some of the problem is we're not very open. So when people are not open, people fear what they don't know. And maybe that's what it is. And I'm fed up of reverts getting a really bad name. I think reverts are really targeted by this program particularly.
Do you think that's perhaps why you were targeted? Because you fit a certain demographic, like a young female Muslim revert?
I did. So when I had a look at the paperwork, they actually have a key, if you like, of what they would say fits in the categories they would deem as vulnerable to be manipulated. And on paper, the information they wrote, although a lot of it was incorrect, and as I said, I wasn't part of the investigation, I did fit into this category. And actually, millions of people fit into this category. They just made it fit because they wanted me to fit this agenda and to be another statistic. And unfortunately, my family member referring me just gave them the green light to, pursue things.
Do you think Muslims are complacent about Prevent? I mean, I must admit, when I do stories on the Five Pillars website, for example, about Prevent, they're not the most popular stories. People don't seem very kind of interested in the whole topic of Prevent. It seems quite boring to them. What would you say to people like that?
I would say it could happen to you, it could happen to your mum, it could happen to your brother, your sister, your child. I'm wearing niqab because I don't want to be identified, and this is how sad it's become. I would say to the Muslim population, the Muslim community, don't ignore this. Prevent can be very dangerous, and actually this service that is meant to be a voluntary service is not. I've seen families torn apart. I have seen families where they have been told, you engage or we're gonna take your children from you. It's not a nothing. Oh, they're just speaking to you. How would you like it? I remember speaking to a Christian about this, and I said, how would you feel if you became a born again Christian and then you was told, okay, just in case, let's go to some Christian extremist training? How insulting is that? The bigger agenda, and that's what people need to realise, is it's against Islam. Like, they are targeting Muslims, and why? And it's, yes, there are Muslims or people who do commit really disgusting crimes in the name of Islam, but that's not all of us, and that is a tiny minority. And actually, most of us, we dismiss people like that. We don't even want to be associated with people like that because that's not in our deen. So I would say to the Muslim community as a whole, please learn what Prevent is, because they are indoctrinating this in the schools. They're encouraging, NHS workers, people, your ordinary people are making referrals, and they don't necessarily understand what it's about or why they're making referrals. Why should you be referred if you start wanting to learn about your deen, or ask in your workplace, do you know what, I would like a space to pray? Do you know that's a green light for your workplace to make a referral about you? It's ridiculous.
And finally, Naila, how do you see your own future?
In terms of my private life, alhamdulillah. However, there's some relationships that are so fractured, I don't know if they'll ever repair. I don't trust people. I have to keep things very private. I wasn't on social media much anyways, but even now I tighten it even more. I don't put any pictures of myself online or my close family. And professionally, I'm stuck. I cannot be the valid member of society and thrive professionally like I always wanted to, because I have a stain against my name, and my crime is being a Muslim. and meeting my husband online and keeping it halal.